Welcome to Mind Myself's podcast, Conversations with E. I'm Esther, and it is our pleasure to be bringing you these conversations with practitioners and people who are navigating their own health journeys. Remember to stay curious, live consciously, and become your own best health advocate because you matter. Welcome to our show today. I'm excited to talk with our guest. Welcome, Liz Jacoy.
Thank you. Thank you, Esther. Thank you for having me on your podcast today.
You are so welcome. Our pleasure. So, Liz, tell us a little bit about yourself as we dive into this wonderful conversation about neurodiversity. But tell us a little bit about you first.
Absolutely. How much time have I got? No, I'm just kidding. Well, Liz Jacoy, I call myself a leadership transformation coach for neurodiversity. I specialize in that area because I really believe that we need to redesign the future direction of leadership. So changing how they think, feel, and act, not only towards neurotypicals, but mostly towards neurodiversity. Because I don't think it's an area that's really understood, that there's nothing wrong, that there's nothing to fix. It's just understanding how the brain functions. I've worked in HR for over 20 years, corporate world, doing leadership training and customer service, sales programs. And what I found was there was a big gap all the time between what people were learning and what they were implementing. And what it was mindset. So now my mindset work is mostly focused towards neurodivergence. Yeah, so I've got lots of certifications. I started off in university in psychology because I always wanted to understand how the human brain works. I was always intrigued by it. So I went into human resources because I always believed that you have to develop and grow your human resources to become profitable. And for the 20 plus years that I worked in HR, I don't think I had that ability to do that until I came out and started working on my own. And now I can see that over the years, I'm really more of a catalyst now for getting people to really shift into that. You know, with AI and all this technology, they really need to start thinking about how are we going to get these people that we do have in our organizations to think better and clearer instead of just, working away. So I think we're starting to get there, and I hope that I'm going to be more of a catalyst in that area.
Excellent. So, you mentioned the word, and I know people are talking about it all the time now, neurodivergence, neurodiverse. How do you define that?
Oh, that's a great. I'm glad you asked me that question. And it came about with when I was doing my research, mostly for TEDx. They actually wanted me to talk. They said, don't talk about ADHD. We want you to talk about neurodiversity. So I'm like, oh, what does that mean? So it's a term that we use to encompass all the different types of diagnosis that are out there: ADHD, autism, dyslexia. There's a few others. So it's kind of like an umbrella term. But what I like about it is that it's positive term. It doesn't connote a deficit or a disorder, but we're understanding it's just like you can do things in diverse ways. So for me, it's understanding how the brain works and that it works differently for each and every individual, even a neurotypical, whether they're typical because that's just norm, right? I think it's just our brain works differently no matter what we're doing. Even if you're neurotypical, that, time management isn't a problem for you, organizing isn't, you're still going to be different from someone else who doesn't think they have a time management problem either, right? So I think that's where it came from, is just understanding that there's various ways that our human operating system, our brain works, and not to work against it, but work with it.
Great definition. And so, neurotypical, neurodiverse, and there's a whole range in between. You might have some of both.
Exactly.
Excellent. How would you describe the problem of leadership? We're in 2026 right now when we're recording this podcast. What is the big challenge that you see?
The big challenge is, I believe, is that they're trying to manage too much and it's almost going back to the old micromanaging style, very autocratic. So it worried more about processes and uh, systems and that sort of thing, and using AI, and there's technological advances, and not looking at your employees in terms of the neurological advances that you can help them with and how to get them to think better. What can you do to help them think? Everybody has a different way of thinking, may not be your way, but if you look at it, we're all talking about innovation and creativity, but we're not using our workforce to help us with that innovation and creativity. So it's shifting from managing to leading. Instead of saying, why aren't they doing what I want them to do? How about ask, what does this person need to get to so that they can do their best thinking, because that's what's going to motivate them. That's what's going to improve your bottom line. That's what's going to get people to really contribute to your vision and your mission of your organization.
So let's dig a little deeper into the differences between managing and leading. We talked about definitions earlier. How do you see those as being different?
Okay. Well, managing is definitely getting people to look at the systems and processes. For example, let's say instead of looking at how long is this project, I want this project done within a certain amount of time. Someone with me, for example, who has slow processing speed, I'm not good with time constraints because I don't know how long something's going to take me to go deeper and wider in the analysis. So if you want quality work, quality analysis, I may need a little bit of time because one word can set me off on different tangents, but the tangents are good because eventually something will pop out that others may not see,
Mm.
but I won't be able to do that if I'm pressured into, it's got to be done in the next hour. But if you just say, can you do this for me? And I can create my own deadline, that would be much better. So I work better in creativity and innovation without having a time constraint. Don't give me one. I'll get it done for you. I could do it maybe in an hour, maybe in 2 days. I don't know. That's one way. So it's really understanding how minds work. We don't take that opportunity. Instead of Oftentimes we want things to be done the same way, but what if that doesn't allow the person to have clarity and focus on what needs to get done? That may disrupt them. So understand what people need for clarity and focus. I don't know if that helps, but looking at output instead of the time put in, I guess is what I'm trying to say. Look at what they're putting out as opposed to the time that they're putting in.
Great. So a good leader is going to manage their workforce, the individuals therein, to adjust for different styles and
Yeah,
and navigate them accordingly. That's what I hear you
exactly.
saying.
Yeah, so when I say lead into the future for your organization,
Mhm.
each letter L stands for it's an acronym for me. L, and that's why it reminded me when you said navigate, because L stands for learn how to navigate challenges. So what are the challenges? And then E is to elevate the mindset. So the leader has to elevate their mindset instead of thinking that this is the only way I can manage people, but now they're going to have to change and shift into a different way. And then A is to adjust. How are you going to now adjust the environment or things that you need to do in order to lead differently? And then the D is once you figure it out, then you can drive with purpose because then you have a purpose to fulfill your vision and mission. So thank you for leading me into lead.
That's awesome. And I know that you have indicated that you have ADD or
Yes.
ADHD. How has that affected you? I know that there are lots of people in the world, whether they've been diagnosed or not, but deal with attention or shiny syndrome or squirrel issues. Tell us a little bit about your experiences personally and in the corporate world.
Oh, great question. I'll start with corporate. I didn't realize it till after. I mean, I was late diagnosed in 2014, so, when I was 56. Um, in the corporate world, one of the things in my performance appraisal back then, which a lot of organizations are now changing the way they're doing that as well, which is great. They're leaning more into leading. So that's great. But it was managing, right? So we have to manage the performance. You're not I need you to participate more in meetings, right? So basically they're telling me I'm too quiet and shy. But they didn't realize is that I have slow processing speed. So while others are brainstorming and coming up with all sorts of ideas in a meeting, I'm like anxious and overloaded because my brain, one word that someone says, then I think that's a great idea. My brain will take that idea and it's like a pinball machine. All of a sudden, everything's going off, everything's lighting up. I'm getting all these rapid associations, connections, and my mind's going in multiple directions. And by the time they want an answer, they've decided the meeting's over and I'm still processing, right? So they didn't realize that I do want to participate. It just might take me longer. I'll take someone else's idea, but I'll make it even better. But I don't have the opportunity to make another idea even better or come up with something even with even more quality because I'm not given that opportunity. So that's one,
So
right?
what and how did you come out of that, or did it take years for you to start realizing that? What happened around that?
Oh, good idea. I guess it was more when I started in my own business. You know how when you start your own business and then you put a lot of pressure on yourself. Why am I not as further along as I want to be? Why am I not doing this? Why am I not doing that? And so I realized that having my own business now allows me to set time aside for that processing, right? So I could, and sometimes it'll happen on a Saturday, Sunday and maybe even go further into Monday. So I don't worry about the time now that it takes for me to put something together because I know that initially I'm running experiments. I'm looking at how long does it take me to put an 8-week course together, for example. So initially it may take me 5 days to do it. And now I look at, oh, okay, I've done that in 5, but how can once that's done, now I can figure out next time I have to do it, what can I take out and reuse? Or just modify and tweak so the time gets slower and slower and slower. I also know that if I allow myself to go off on tangents and use that discernment, well, I'm going off on this tangent now. Is that going to help? Yes. Or I can connect the dots later and say that I went off on those tangents and I see now, now I see how it all comes together. That those tangents I went off on and did some research in is really helpful now. So it's not I guess learning not to beat yourself up and
Mhm.
having that discernment to just go with it, trust your intuition. I guess that's the thing is I've noticed with ADHD people that I've worked with, they are so intuitive but they've learned through society that that's not what the organizations want. That's not what people in their sphere want. They don't like it, right? So they've had to hold back. So it's kind of like masking it, right? In a way. So I think it has a lot to do with intuition and allowing the intuition to take you to those tangents because then later you can connect the dots and see, now I get it.
It's so important to learn who we really are
Hmm.
and release as much judgment as we can in the process. And sometimes that might take some time. We have these old memes or the old
Yep.
messages and the old tapes running in our head. There's an old word for you, tapes.
Yep.
The old messages running in our head and that we're not good enough or whatever. But what I love about this conversation is everyone's brain wiring is different. And
Yes.
maybe the more unusual your brain wiring, sometimes the more creative and intuitive you might be. And if we can
Exactly.
learn to harness those aspects of ourselves, then we have more to contribute and maybe we can relax a little and go, I just need to find my own place in the world.
Yes.
Now
Exactly.
you've talked about corporate, but I know the personal preceded the corporate. Tell us a story from your own personal experience of working with your own neurodiversity.
Do you want like a childhood or any
Sure,
time?
give us a childhood.
Okay. I remember, and this is interesting because what they found was, didn't they focus more, and you know this too, right? They focus more on boys. misbehaving,
Mm-hmm.
right? As opposed to not seeing that that's an energy they're trying to release in order to
Mm-hmm.
be creative and learn,
Mm-hmm.
right? So, yeah, and girls weren't focused. So for me, in the 60s, I was in grade 5, and the teacher didn't say anything to me, but sent a note home to my parents saying, Tell Liz to stop tap dancing under her desk." And of course, in those days, you learn that, the world wants stillness and you can't really go against it. And so being a girl, you want to fit and you want to belong, not knowing that, that was my way of, I needed music and movement to learn and to focus. And I guess it's distracting for other people, but it's not for me, right? And
Mm-hmm.
so that's interesting because that's where I already had the makings, probably even before that. I mean, there's other stories, but that was I think, the tipping point that I can realize, because what happens then is your parents tell you this, so then shame, guilt, fear gets wired into operating into my brain. There's new neural pathways are created. So that every time I feel disapproval from a parent or a teacher, I feel shame, guilt, fear. So I'm not going to do that, right? Because I want to belong. So that's what I see. So that's how that pattern of, uh, you know, doing things like that. So you develop other things, like you become perfectionist or avoidance or a people pleaser or controller or victim, whatever those things are. It manifests in different ways because you want to fit in, because you're told that, that's not the way to be. So that's one way. And I didn't realize that until I think I did when I started looking at Enneagram, so you understand, the nine, and then I started looking at sabotage patterns through Shirzad Charmaine. I don't know if you've heard of him as well. Yeah, he does like what's called sabotage patterns. You
Mm-hmm.
can find what they are, and it's linked to, I link it to the Enneagram so people can see there's good parts and there's the parts that don't work for you, and you overuse the good parts to sort of hide whatever happened in childhood, right? So yeah, that's what I work with. So
Amazing. And it sounds like you've done so much reading and research and practice and trial and error along the way.
for decades, yeah.
Yes. And then you didn't get a quote unquote diagnosis until your mid 50s.
Yes.
How would you say coming to that understanding, whether you got a diagnosis or not, but you happen to, but whether somebody has a diagnosis or not, but coming to understand your own brain wiring and then being able to work with it, how has that shifted and changed you and your life?
Oh my God, I'm glad you asked that. I noticed that, well, just paying attention to how you're feeling, right? So if I'm feeling agitated, nervous, and that inner critic, that voice in your head that's telling you you're not good enough or you should be further along, why are you doing it this way? Blah blah blah. It's sort of stopping it, learning to stop it and say, okay, what do I really need right now? I know I have slow processing speed. Is this the best way for me to? I think it's just that learning to not to listen to that voice, but then counter it with, well, that's the way it used to be, and that didn't work for me. But let's try this and see if it's going to work better for me, right?
Yeah.
Everything with, even with time management. My hubby my ex, it's one of the things he always got mad at me for was he was always having to wait for me. We're always late out the door. Apparently it was always my fault when we were out. He always had to wait for me. So I realize that now too, is that it's my brain always thinking I've got to get so many things done and it's got to get done now or I'm going to forget to do it later. And so what I've learned to do is when I call it the 5 minute getting out the door quick task thing. It's actually a delusion. So what I do now is when I think I have 5 minutes, I just go out the door instead of trying to put in that load of laundry or undo, the dishwasher. So I'm just training myself to just, nope, you're going to need 5 minutes to put your shoes on and get in the car. Nope, let's just kind of redirecting every time my mind is just becoming aware. It's really having that self-awareness, uh, listening to other people telling you what you might not be doing as well as you think you should. and then taking it, right? Because they might be
Mhm.
able to pinpoint, right? And then just taking a look at that. So, yeah, so time.
And it sounds like this is a really important aspect in the whole conversation about leadership, about personal development, about managing in leadership, awareness. So, are you saying that that's one of the primary shifts that's necessary for us to expand into the future?
Exactly. I mean, I don't even know what else to say, but yes, it
Okay.
is, right? Because when you don't know, you don't know what you don't know, right? But when you don't know, but then you become aware of what you don't know, that's when I think you can start thinking about what you're thinking about to make the changes
Now,
that
if
you
you
need to
followed
make.
that, that's very good. When you don't know what you don't know, and you don't know, so we'll just go. So awareness, absolutely key. And how would somebody start the conversation, Liz? Maybe somebody there's probably somebody watching this who already knows, yes, I'm ADHD, or I'm on a spectrum somewhere with something, and they're conversant of the conversation. But what if somebody isn't? Where do they start?
You mean in terms of identifying
Yeah, whether
time
they're
management?
well, whether they're neurodiverse or not.
Okay.
And then the follow-up would be, so where do they start? And then how would they navigate the first change?
Okay. You know what? I think it would be time, managing time, because I think that's the biggest problem or that people come to me with, procrastination, right? Not being able to plan and organize, task initiation. So a lot of it has to do with time and managing time. I would say start there first. Are you always getting out the door late? Are you overestimating or underestimating how long things take so that you're scrambling to get things done? Could be chores in the house as well. That's a work thing, but maybe chores at the house. Some chores you do, you enjoy doing, and then there's other chores that are really boring, and it's like you're falling asleep and you're so exhausted. That might be an indication too that there might be some attention deficit or ADHD, neurodiversity going on there. So I'd say we're mostly on time because time seems to be such a valuable commodity for people. So start taking a look at that. Are you having difficulty starting tasks? Maybe it's a procrastination issue. What are you afraid of? And that might be key to identifying it as well.
I like that a lot. And if somebody is listening to this and they're in a management or leadership position and they've got some people on their team that they may not understand, where should they start?
Well, they could start with me, contact me,
How would that
and
work?
well, they could just go to my website and book a 30-minute complimentary call so that we can start looking at then. And then because there's so many resources out there, I can either point them to resources if I feel that that would help them, or we could take it a little bit further and I could do some more assessments with them to find out what it is exactly that they need.
So good. And it's so important to start the conversations,
Yes,
not wait
yes,
and not assume that something's just going to go away, whether it's personal or business. Start the conversations. That's really important.
yes, thank you. Exactly.
What's next for Liz Jacoy?
What's next? Well, by this year, I'm planning on working on a program that I can launch in January of next year. So people, instead of working one-to-one with me, they can have something digital that they can use on their own time, but something that's simple and easy instead of complex. And speaking. I love going out speaking, looking for lunch and learns in organizations or companies that may want me to come in for an hour and talk more about, understanding differences in human beings and work with it and not against it.
So great. And I know you also have a TEDx talk that you're preparing for right
Yes, thank you for reminding me of that. That's going to be in May in Oshawa. Yeah, that's going to be on leading with neurodiversity. I haven't got the topic. That's the topic. It's going to be leading on neurodiversity, understanding it. So, yeah,
Yes, whether you have the title now or not is irrelevant. But yes, more conversation about neurodiversity. Thank
exactly.
you, Liz. What is something that you'd like to leave your listener with today?
Just there's never anything wrong with you. You're not broken. There's nothing to fix. There's no deficits or disorders. It's just understanding.
Just understanding. And I would add from myself, it's so important to be aware and
Yes.
to have compassion on yourself.
Oh, big time.
Yes,
You're
all the
right.
way through the process, no matter what. And if you fail, get up and go again. Like they say, get back on the horse, right?
Exactly. And yeah, like there's no failures, right? It's just learning. Everything is learning opportunity. Yeah.
Wonderful. Well, it's been such a great conversation, Liz. Thank you so much for being here.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
You're so welcome. And remember, those of you who are listening, we do this because you matter.